On March the 10th, I talked on Trump's tariffs. Well, I thought I'd do another video, this time different, but now that a few days have passed and I thought it's time to say something about the state of play and what I think is going to be the future. The first stage is, of course, as I said, Trump coming out with tariffs on exports from China, from his immediate neighbors, Canada and Mexico, and recently, just a few days back, on EU countries, and also the UK. He has promised reciprocal tariffs on the rest of the world, and those announcements are to come. Now, I won't be talking about tariffs for too long because in all the cases, Trump's tariffs have been met with what could be called retaliatory tariffs. And that is the substance of the first round. You clobber our exports to you to the extent of, say, 25% on our exports to you. Here, take it 30% on your exports to us, that kind of thing. So, pretty simple. So, if Trump's tariffs are, say, 25%, the other side's tariffs on this time on American exports to them will be 30, that kind of thing. So, what's the state of play in regard to all these countries? China, Canada, Mexico, and the latest entrant, EU. It's not only a state of play actually, but the consequences. As I see things developing, what are the consequences? Let's take China, for example. First, China. Whatever tariffs have been imposed on Chinese goods, Chinese exports to USA, the Chinese have retaliated. But there is a difference. While, and I spoke about that last time, while America has imposed kind of across the board all exports from China, kind of carpet bombing, all the exports from China, China has been imposing tariffs on only those things which they think, on those items, which they think would hurt rural America, which means the Trump base. So they have shown this kind of tactical discrimination in the matter of imposing tariffs on American exports to them. Standing out is, of course, the spotlight on US soya beans. So that's a thing that is to which, to some extent, Trump may be vulnerable. On the Chinese side, the strategy has also been, as I said in the first video, first talk, that it's not just tit for tat and all that. They have control over certain exports of rare metals and minerals, and they're going to put a stranglehold on that. In other words, saying, we are not going to send you this. Simple as that. We're just not going to send you. In that kind of shall we say, logic, China has announced that exports to 15 American companies is going to be controlled. Now we can guess that these exports are all Chinese rare metals and minerals. That is the latest. I'm not going to spend time talking about tariffs and retaliatory tariffs and things like that. What's the next stage of the game? And this is what I see. You can't go on tariffs, counter tariffs and so on, ping pong, tit for tat eternally. There has got to be a thing. There's got to be something. Because as I said, if it is tariffs, counter tariffs and all that, it is that finally there will be no winners and there will be losers, both sides. That may not be the outcome after all. That's what I think. Now, this is my point. The next stage is the stage of diplomacy, negotiations, not prostrating themselves before Trump. No, nothing of that kind, nothing of that kind, but quiet diplomacy. Now, please remember that the Chinese have about 1,000 years or more of diplomacy, diplomatic history. After all, America is a recent nation. How many years? 400 years or 50 years of history. Chinese diplomacy and Chinese statecraft has a history of about 2,000 years. So, there will be some negotiations. And when we talk of negotiations, please remember that always negotiations are from a position of strength, not weakness. And China has a lot of strengths. I mentioned that last time, but I'm only just quickly summarizing one aspect. China has a favorable balance of trade with the world, surplus in the matter of trade of $1 trillion US. In other words, simple words, in trade, the world owes China $1 trillion. This is the way in which it goes. They have what is called a surplus in the matter of trade, international trade. And this, of course, is there with the United States. A surplus with most countries. US, on the other hand, has got a deficit in the balance of trade. Therefore, for them, it's just the opposite. That they owe, America owes the world $1 trillion US. This is the game. So, on the one side, you have China having surplus in the matter of trade. That is, their exports minus imports is at nearly $1 trillion. And on the other side, so far as America is concerned, their imports minus exports is about $1 trillion. This makes for something. Now, how does it play out? We can't foresee the future nor predict the future, and it will be foolhardy to do anything of that kind. But then, having started a conversation with you on this, I must tell you this is a possibility, what I see, and that is that China might more or less tell USA in the course of these negotiations, which are bound to come, not directly from the president to the president. There are various other channels through which these things go. China might tell the US administration that they are prepared to buy more from the US and export less to the US. You get it? That is number one. They are prepared to buy more. You know, they have a surplus in trade. They are prepared to buy more from the US and export less to the US. That's one possibility. Another, but all these possibilities have been in the air for some time. That means informally, China has said that to the United States. What is it that you can offer? That's what Trump always says. What will I get in the deal? Yes, you will get this in the deal, that I, China, will buy more from you, and also sell less to you, if that will bring you some kind of better balance of trade, no problem. China has also in some way or the other thrown hints that China is ready to invest in USA. Chinese companies are ready to invest in USA. Oh, China has, as I said already, they have a trade surplus. Therefore, they are sitting on funds. And therefore, they are ready. And I also told you that they hold about $580 billion of US treasuries too. So they got the funds, they can do it. So that is one possibility. Now, if you look at the other side, Trump, with all this kind of talk and bullying that is going on, he doesn't do that for China simply because they are equal to him. Therefore, he has, even by his standards, he has been slightly restrained in the matter of speaking all kinds of things. So the thing is that there has been this thought, this idea of a grand deal between USA and China. Quite possible, because in his mind, only power counts. So we have three players, big players. One, America. Two, China. Three, Russia. With Russia has already not only mended fences, he has given them a lot of advantage. So practically said, you may take parts of Ukraine, that kind of thing. So this is the state of play. Why do I say this? Because in the coming days, I think you would be interested in seeing the moves and counter moves. These moves and counter moves cannot be just tariffs and counter tariffs. Hey, that's a dumb game. That's a boys' game. How can you have this kind of thing going on for a long time? The next stage is diplomacy, and how it works out and how it's going, you'll have to see. One thing is for sure, China is not going to rush with anything, nor is China going to be in great haste to meet Trump or his emissaries. It will be a slow process. They won't be in a big hurry. And I suspect that this being the case, the moves are likely to come from Trump. This is just how I see it. In the short run, it might be slightly different, but this is the way it might go. Okay. So that's how I see it. That's the briefing I have to do. You can follow this in your own way. That's the purpose, to help you to follow this in your own way. And now the second, shall we say, the second party, the second country, group of countries, is Canada and Mexico. Now, I would sum up this like this. While retaliatory tariffs have been announced, both have been suspended for a little while, giving time for negotiations. And therefore, we won't know until probably end of March, early April, how it's going to be. At the moment, Canada has said, I mean, the new Prime Minister has come out with statements which are very nationalistic and also resonating the sentiments and spirit of the people of Canada. Remember that when we speak of Canada, Mexico, EU, European Union, we are speaking of democratic countries, and these people who now are in charge are democratically elected people. Therefore, in all these cases, they will have to respond and speak the voice of the people of those states. So that's how it's going to be. Prime Minister Mark Carney, who has a very distinguished career, Governor of the Bank of England, Governor of the Bank of Canada, a distinguished monetary economist, who is now the Prime Minister. He might become the Prime Minister tomorrow. Anyway, he is in charge now. He has said, America wants our resources, our water, our country. We shall not, give up our country. Never ever will Canada be a part of America in any form or state. That kind of thing, of course, that is not just a bravado, it is a clear response to the sentiment expressed in Canada. Nationalistic sentiments are running very high in Canada and in Mexico. So that is what is called the consequences other than economic consequences. Not tariff and the economics of tariff, the other things that have become the consequence. The spirit of nationalism that has been aroused, that is going to stay there. The laws of trust, the laws of integrity, all these are not going to go away. So whatever has happened in the Canadian citizens' minds is going to stay for 100 years. That is the non-economic consequences of Trump's dealings, Trump's tariffs. Anyway, we'll have to watch and see how that unfolds so far as Canada and Mexico are concerned. EU, President Trump has announced something like 20% levy on steel. For good measure, EU has responded with retaliatory tariffs on agriculture products of the USA. So that's round one. Round two, before round two, what are the consequences of all this thing that has happened? The consequences clearly are, in the matter of EU, that they have woken to the fact that for too long they have been dependent on the United States for their defense. For too long. Therefore, now suddenly they know that at any time America can walk out and leave them exposed. And of course they know that Russia has always been an aggressor in Europe. So that's the situation there. And you know what? They have decided, in the words of the new German Chancellor, do whatever it takes. Oh, it has been really very remarkable how, from a pacifist state of mind and a pacifist approach to matters of defense, the new Chancellor has put defense spending as the top priority. Whatever constraints he had in respect of the law regarding the the defense expenditure and the deficit, budget deficit, has been got over by saying when it comes to defense, we're going to waive all this, the ceiling that has been placed. So, a consequence of Trump tariffs has been a tremendous rearming of Germany, tremendous rearming. I was just reading the other day, Rheinmetall, which is a big manufacturer of defense equipment, is opening 10 new factories in many parts of the world. And they're big manufacturers. And when they say they're going to manufacture, they really mean business. Yeah, that's just a small idea of how things are working. So in every country in the EU, France, every country, they are increasing their defense budget, increasing by many fold. And therefore, this rearming will take place. They're going to be on their own, that's the aim, but it's not easy to be on your own so quickly, especially for all these years you have been dependent on USA. So it will take a few years. In the meanwhile, there will be diplomacy. In other words, sometimes the present arrangements with some are not tariffs. I mean the present arrangements of depending on the Americans for defense, that is something they might continue with because there is no other way. So that's what I see it. Nothing for clear now, because EU tariffs were imposed only on the 12th of March, just a couple of days ago. So that's how it is. But then, as I said a little while ago, public opinion has turned against America, and that counts for a lot. It's called soft power, your image, and so on. Well, above 70% of most of the countries who have been polled, people who have been polled, in UK, in Germany, in France, over 70% think that there is a threat from America. That is the seriousness of the situation. That is the perception of the people. UK, Germany, France, and then of course all the rest. So they think that America is an enemy, that it can harm them. That is the change that has come. It's a big change, really. So this is the state of play. So far, when I was talking to you, I said that all these countries, including Europe, have a long history of diplomacy, and they're not going to be particularly fazed or disconcerted by Trump's moves. They know that there's a way out in diplomacy. So diplomacy will be tried out. But then, at the moment in Washington, with Trump tearing up all the structures of international trade, tearing up all the supply chains and everything, there's a question mark. What is the aim? What are they going? And some very crazy ideas are making the rounds. That his advisors, some of them not even known, but anyway, his advisors on economics are all some of very extreme views which go back to the 1930s or 1925, such as bringing the US dollar down, Till now we were always thinking of the almighty dollar, US dollar going up, going up. Bring the US dollar down. Let US economy reach rock bottom, which means really inviting depression. And then there will be some theory which says then there will be a boom. With this kind of thing, others will be destroyed. Okay. In this group of very crazy ideas, there is one more, and that is tax all the US treasuries held by China and all the other nations. Till now, US treasuries were as good as gold. A very safe haven investment. Their word that everything that is as good as gold. But now these crazy people are even talking about taxing 10% on US treasuries, that kind of thing. So some very crazy ideas are going on, but I hope it won't be developed. But you can't say though. I'll come back to you if any such crazy ideas come. When I talked about crazy ideas, I just remembered a quote from John Maynard Keynes, which I, of course, studied when I was in the 20s or 20, hardly 20. It went something like this, last page of General Theory, Interest, Employment and Money. That is his brilliant work. Madmen who hear voices in the air might be distilling their frenzy from some scribbler of a few years back or some defunct economist. Well, I hope that it will not come to that crazy people, madmen, would not dictate the course of the United States and of the world. I'll come back to you if there is some developments which I can share with you, and share with you not only developments but some ideas which might come out of it.